All right, so let's talk about another way to solve nonlinear systems of equations. So yesterday we talked about using graphing, if that was available to us, and finding where they intersect. And we also talked about substitution. Today we're going to talk about using elimination. So if you look at this first problem, and make sure you have your composition notebook out, you're taking notes, you're writing things down. Elimination, remember this is when we multiplied one of the equations so that we could eliminate one of our variables. So if you look at this one, if we take these two equations and we line them up all nice and neat, we can take the opposite of the bottom one and subtract it. So if we subtract, remember we have to subtract all of them. So if we're subtracting, and I know this one doesn't really show it, but if we're subtracting, this became a negative y, this -3 gets multiplied by a -1, so it becomes a positive, and this also becomes a positive. So that means we took this whole entire thing, and multiplied it by -1 so that we could subtract. So everybody gets multiplied by -1. Now when we go to combine, y plus a -y eliminates, hence elimination, right here, elimination. It eliminates the y's, so we're left with 0 here. X squared comes on down. The 3x and the -3x also eliminate, and the -2 plus the 8 gives us a +6. Okay, then we could keep going. We're going to move that -6 over so we can solve for x, or that +6 over so we can solve for x. So we're going to take that 0x squared plus 6. We're going to move that 6 and subtract it from both sides. Now here's the tricky. Look at this one. In order to solve for x here, we have to take the square root of x squared and the square root of -6. But here is an issue. We cannot have the square root of a negative number, which means that there is no real solutions. Okay, so the square of a real number cannot be negative. Later on, you'll learn some fancy other ones. If we look at our graph, they do intersect, so there's no solution. All right, let's do some practice. So have out that lovely composition notebook, have out your wonderful colors and whatever else you're doing, and let's do some writing. I'm going to change up my colors today because I'm feeling spiffy. So here we go. We want to eliminate one of these. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to rewrite it, but I want to multiply this entire bottom one by -1. So I'm going to rewrite my top one, y equals x squared plus x. And then I'm going to rewrite my bottom one, lining things up. So my y gets multiplied by -1, so it becomes a -y equals. My x gets multiplied by -1, so it becomes a -x. I'm going to line it up with my x. And my 5 gets multiplied by -1, so it becomes a -5. If it helps, add a +0 there so you have digits to line up. So y plus -y gives you 0. Gives you 0. Equals the x squared minus 0 gives you nothing. Plus x and a -x gives you 0, so those go away too. And then a 0 and a -5 gives you a -5. Now we're going to solve for x. So we're going to move this guy over. So 5 equals x squared, and we want the square root of that. Okay, so x is equal to the square root of 5, or plus or minus the square root of 5, because it could be either one. Now we have to actually solve this, so we have to plug that back in. So I'm going to take that square root of 5 and kind of go ahead and solve it and round it to nearest hundredth, and then use that to plug in my values. So if I look on my calculator and I do the square root of 5, I get 2.236. So plus or minus 2.2, that's not a 2, 236, dot, dot, dot. So this tells me that that is going to change. So my x is a positive 2.24, and my x is a negative 2.24. Now remember, we're solving a system, so we need an ordered pair. So I know that I have a 2.24 comma something and a negative 2.24 comma something. Take these and plug them in. So I'm going to take that and put it here because all I have to do is add 5 to it. So 5 plus 2.24 gives you a 7.24, and then a 5, a negative 2.24 plus 5 gives you, that's not a 4 there. I'm having all kinds of issues today. All right, so negative 2.24 plus 5 gives you a 2.76. So our y value here is 2.76. Okay, so about 2.24 and 7.24, and then about negative 2.24 and 2.76. All right, look at this one. Same kind of thing. So I'm going to set up my problem so that I can start eliminating. And it looks like I could do the same thing. I just need to multiply that bottom one by negative 1. So I'm going to keep my top one the same. Y equals 9x squared plus 8x minus 6. And I'm going to multiply the second equation by negative 1. So everybody here gets multiplied by negative 1. So y times negative 1 gives you a negative y equals, I don't have an x squared, so I'm just going to put a 0 there. 5x times negative 1, and if it helps, just go through and put them all like that if you want. So minus 5x plus 4. And then we're going to go ahead and combine those, hopefully eliminating some things as we go. So let's combine. So y minus y is 0. 9x squared and y gives you a 9x squared. 8x minus 5x gives you a positive 3x. And a negative 6 plus a 4 gives you a negative 2. Okay, now I'm going to see if I can factor, because that would be the easiest way. So I'm going to take my a times my c. So 9 times negative 2, factor sum. And 9 times negative 2 is negative 18. And we want those to add up to the middle number, which is 3. And they're going to be different signs. So let's see, 6 times 3 would probably give me that 3. And I want a positive 3, so it's going to have to be like this. Okay, so 9x squared, because I have an a, I have to split this one. So plus 6x minus 3x minus 2. So now we're going to split and split all of our magical factoring skills that we have from previously. Okay, so what can I pull out of here? 9 and 6 are divisible by 3, and they both have x's. So I'm going to divide all of it by 3x. So that leaves me a 3x, and a 6x divided by a 3x gives me a positive 2. Looking at your second set, I see a negative x, so I'm going to take out a negative, and there's nothing else I can take out, so I'm going to take out negative 1. That'll give me a positive 3x and a positive 2. So we have a match. So 3x plus 2 is one of my factors, and then a 3x minus 1 is my other factor. We still have to solve for x and then plug that in. So I'm going to set both these up equal to 0 so I can solve for my x values. So 3x plus 2 equals 0, and 3x minus 1 equals 0. So minus 2 plus 1, 3x equals negative 2, 3x equals 1, divide by 3, divide by 3, divide by 3, divide by 3. So x is equal to negative 2/3, and x is equal to 1/3. So that means in my ordered pair, put them up here because I'm running out of room, it's going to be negative 2/3 for one of my x and 1/3 sorry, for my other x. All right, and then we still have to plug that in and solve for y. So I'm going to use the bottom one because it's probably the easiest. So 5x, and it was originally 5x minus 4. So I'm going to start with that one. So 5x minus 4. So 5 times negative 2/3 minus 4, and 5 times 1/3 minus 4. So this is going to give you a negative 10/3 minus 4 and a 5/5 minus 4. All right. So once you have your 10/3 minus 4 and your 5/3 minus 4, hopefully you do a little mathematical magic and you end up with some kind of craziness. So let's see. Negative 10/3. So negative 10/3 minus 4. So in order to subtract this, I need these the same. So I'm going to take that. So negative 10/3 minus 12/3 gives you a negative 22/3. And I'm just going to leave that. So since this one's already a fraction, so negative 22/3. And then we do our 1/3. So 1, which is 5/3. So 5/3, because we solved right here with the 1/3. So 5/3 minus 4. And again, I want the same, so I'm going to multiply these. So it's 5/3 minus 12/3. which gives you a negative 7/3. So this one's going to be a negative 7/3. Gotta love a little fraction practice. All right, look at this one. So same thing, except for the only thing difference here is our numbers have flipped around. So I'm going to just write this one first. So y equals negative 3x squared plus x minus 4. I'm going to put this underneath, but I'm going to multiply all of this by negative 1. So when I multiply all of that by negative 1, I end up with a negative y, negative 2x, and a negative 5. So I'm going to put these underneath. So negative y, no x squared, a negative 2x, and a negative 5. And then we're going to combine those. Okay, so once we combine those, y minus y is 0. Negative 3x squared minus 2 is negative 3x squared. A positive 1x and a negative 2x is a negative 1x. And a negative 4 and a negative 5 is a negative 9. All right, so now we're going to look and see if we can solve this. So there's nothing I can pull out of here, so I can try to factor it. I'm going to pull on negative real quick. So 3x squared plus x plus 9. So 3 times 9 is 27, and I can do 9 and 3, 1 and 27. I think that's it, and none of those are going to up to a 1, so not factorable. So before I just say for sure that there's no real answers, I'm going to go ahead and use this one and plug into my negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, just to make sure. So negative b, negative 1 plus or minus the square root of negative 1 squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times negative 3. So this becomes 1 plus or minus square root. Negative 1 squared is 1, minus or plus, we'll see. Negative 4 times negative 3 is a positive 12 times a negative 9 gives me a negative 108. And I'm just going to stop right there because when I take 1 and I subtract 108, I'm going to end up with the square root of a negative number. And I can't do right now the square root of negative number, so that means this is no solutions, or no real solutions. Okay? All right, pause the video, see if you can do this one. And then resume and check your work. I don't know if I did this one yet, but we'll see. Okay, so hopefully you paused and you tried it out at least. Let's see what I can do here. So again, this one's going to stay. Y equals x squared minus 5x minus 7. This one's all going to become opposites because I'm going to line them up. So negative y, 0, so how many of those, plus 5x, that was a positive, so it became a negative, so minus 9, those cross out, equals x squared, 5x and a negative 5x gives you nothing, and negative 7 and negative 9 gives you a negative 16. So I'm going to put my 16, move my 16, equals x squared, so square root. So x is equal to plus or minus 4, because the square root of 16 is 4, and it could be a positive 4 or a negative 4. And then we're going to go back up here and plug that in. So let me see if I can erase, because I don't like all this stuff on here now. There we go. All right, so I'm going to plug that into the bottom one just because it probably is a little bit easier. So I'm going to plug in a positive y. So right now, our positive x. So note we have x is 4, and we also have x as negative 4, and we have to find our y values. All right, so y equals negative 5 times 4 plus 9, and y equals negative 5 times negative 4 plus 9. So negative 5 times 4 is 20, plus negative 20, plus 9, which means y is negative 11. Y equals a positive 20 plus 9, which means y is 29. So we have 29 and we have negative 11. Okay, we'll see if we're right in a minute because my answers are second. All right, so try this one and see what you get. Again, I would go through and do opposites of all these and then line them up underneath each other. So pause the video and try it, because you know you're going to have one you have to submit in a little bit. Make sure you can do it. Actually, I think you have two you have to submit today. All right, I'm going to line this one up underneath. So negative y equals, there's no x squared, minus x minus 4. A weird green color. Gives you a 0. Negative 3x squared gives you a 0 minus 2. Okay, so we still want to go ahead and solve. All right, so again, we're back here with a negative square root, which means no, so it must be a no solution. All right, 4, negative 11, negative 429. We did number 19 correct. Go us. Oops, somewhere down here. Yay. And number 20 says no solution, so we did number 20 right. Yay. All right, 2 more, and then you're on your own. So make sure you stop and pause as you go to make sure you know what you're doing. Again, take the second one, or the shortest one, and all negative. Could you do the top one? Sure. This one's just the easier one to do. So y equals negative x squared minus 2x plus 2. Negative y equals no x squared minus 4x minus 2. Shoop. All right, if you haven't paused me, make sure you pause me and go try it. Don't just let me do all the work for you, because that's just lazy. And you guys aren't lazy, are you? No, it's not possible. Okay, so 0 equals plus 6x. All right. Looks like we might want to try completing the square for this one. Because that might, we can take out an x. Let's see. Take out an x. Let me go back. Hold on. So 0 equals negative x plus 6. Not sure it helps me too much, but I'm going to go ahead and complete the square. Whee! So 0 equals negative x squared plus 6x. So b divided by 2 squared equals 6 divided by 2 squared equals 3 squared, which equals 9. Negative x squared plus 6 plus 9, which is really a minus 9, so minus 9 over here. So negative 9 equals negative x squared plus 6x plus 9. Negative 9 equals negative x plus 3 squared. So I'm going to divide by negative 1 to start with. 9 equals x plus 3 squared. Take the square root. So plus or minus 3 equals x plus 3. So minus 3. So x is going to be a positive 3 plus 3, and a negative 3 plus 3, which means a 6 and a 0. So x is 0 or x is 6. All right, so hope we didn't get lost along the way. So right here I completed the square because I have x squared and an x this time. Before I always got rid of the x, or I was able to factor. This time I didn't have another number to factor, so I wanted to complete the square so I could factor. So once I did that, I knew I had to make sure that the number that went inside is the same, and we multiply whatever's on the outside. That gives me a negative 9. That has to go in both sides, but it looks like a positive here. And then I divided by negative 1. I got plus or minus, and then I got x plus 3. To get rid of this 3 here, we subtract it from that plus or minus 3. Now I have to take these and plug them in. So right now I know my answer is 0 something and 6 something. So if I plug in back at the top here, and again, you can do either one. I like doing the shorter one because it's a little bit easier. I'm going to plug it into this one here. So if I plug in 0, I have 4 times 0, which is 0, plus 2, which is 2. And if I plug in 6, I have 4 times 6, which is 24, plus 2, which is 26. Okay? All right, look at this one. Same thing, make all these opposite, and then try to line them up. So y equals negative 2x squared plus x minus 3, negative y, nothing there, minus 2x plus 3, plus 2. That gets rid of this one. So we have 0 equals negative 2x squared minus 1x, and minus 3 plus 2 is a minus 1. Okay, I'm going to take that negative out of the way. 2x squared plus x plus 1. So if I look at completing whatever over here, I'm going to do 2 times 1. We're going to factor this. So 2 times 1 is 2, and I need them to add up to a 1. Well, the only factors of 2 are 1 and 2, and they're not going to add up to 1. So that doesn't look good. So I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to go back to this one, see if I can use my square, quadratic formula just to double check. So plus minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So minus negative 1 plus or minus the square root of negative 1 squared minus 4 times a, which is negative 2, times c, which is negative 1, all over 2 times negative 2. So this is a 1 plus or minus. Negative 1 squared is positive 1. And then we have negative 4 times negative 2, which is a positive 8, times a negative 1, which gives you a negative 8. And I can pretty much stop right there because this is going to give me a negative number, which I can't do right now. So that means it's going to be no solutions. Uh-oh, that should be negative, negative. What did I do over here? Negative, negative. Oh, I added this one twice, didn't I? I did. I added here. And this should be, oh, I did some math wrong. This is what happens when you skip steps. So 3 and negative 3. And we were minusing 3 each time. So minus 3 and minus 3, which would give you a 0. So I still have this one. But this should be a negative 3 minus negative 3, which would be negative 6. So what happens when I skip steps? So when I apply this by negative 6, I get negative 24 plus 2, which gives you a negative 22. Oops. Be careful, Miss Nicole. Watch what you're doing. Okay, this is what happens when you skip steps and you put all these weird signs together. You get lost. So make sure you don't skip steps like I did. All right, your turn. Don't skip steps. Show your work. Look at the Google form. You'll fill in both of those answers on your Google form. I will label them 23 and 24. I'll also put the answers or the picture up there so you can see. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll see you tomorrow. Actually, tomorrow is going to be Thursday. And so Thursday and Friday, you're going to have a test, quiz, whatever you want to call it. And I will give you 2 days to work on it. Now, it's going to be online. So it'll be a link that you go to and you'll fill it on there. So my suggestion to you is one of 2 things. Either print it if you can and work on it and then go back and fill in all your answers, or do all of your work and then on Friday or whenever you finish the whole test, go and put it on. I don't think it'll save it as you go. So if you try to do half it Thursday and then finish the other half on Friday, your answers will probably disappear. So you need to make sure that you are doing it on paper somewhere so you can submit it all at one time. All right. I will see you later. Have a great, wonderful day. La 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 la. La la.